Hey guys, today we've got a really cool Photoshop task. On Twitter, Photoshop's always posts some really cool images, and one image I found that was really cool was this one. I call it the inside out house because if you look at it one way, you're inside the house, but if you ignore the bottom part and just focus on the top part, it's the outside of the house. So there's the roof and the chimney, and this is the outside door. But then if you look at it this way, that's the door from the inside, and this guy is inside the house. It's really cool. It's a matter of perspective, and I thought it'd be a great Photoshop tutorial to do. Now, obviously, we don't have these great high definition images that these guys at Photoshop at Adobe are using. So what I've had to do is go on to just Google Images and source out some images. So I've got some things like the attic window, and looking up. So there's a bin. What else do we have? We've got a carpet, like the carpet there. Now, all of the colors are all different, and the patterns that I've got are different, but they are similar enough, and in Photoshop we can change them so they look more like the one in this image here. So we've got the background, we've got the desk and chair, we've got a little dog. It's a different dog, but I think it's cute enough. We've got a door, a little poster, so images. So I just had a look at this Photoshop image and started to say, well, what do I need? I need a floor mat, I need carpet, I need a bin, I need paper, need floorboards and a wall and a roof, tiles and wood, welcome mat, windows, and so basically everything I need to recreate this. Now there are some things that I'm missing, like this street lamp, the lamp here, and the wall, the PowerPoint, but those things we can always add later on. Anyways, let's get started. First thing we're going to do is we want the biggest image, which is going to be the background. Now I've got this, it's called desert, and I'm just going to open that in Photoshop. Okay. First thing you'll notice is the background is locked. Now what you want to do is click on this lock, double click on it or single click on it, should remove the lock, and anything that pops up just hit OK. What we're going to do is change the way this picture looks, because we want it to look more like this background. Now this background is very grey. It's desaturated. The color has been sucked out of it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to Image, Adjustments, and then I'm going to go to Hue and Saturation. Now there's another way of getting there. You can basically just go to your layer, and above your layer you'll have these adjustments, and Hue and Saturation is right here. I like to use the menu system, but Hue and Saturation is what we want. Now I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. Now what we want to do is change the color, and that is where you change the hue. Saturation is bringing more of that color. So the grass here has a tint of yellow in it. So if I want more yellow to come through, then I'll increase the saturation. If I wanted less color, then I would decrease the saturation. Now this particular Photoshop task, if I have a look, you can tell it's very desaturated and there's a tint of blue. So what we're going to do is try and get that blue tint. So I'll change the colors. It's probably about there. And now I'm going to desaturate it. So I want to get rid of as much of the color from the screen as possible. Make it about there. I'm also going to bring the lightness down, so make it a bit dark. Cool. Let's see how that looks. I'm going to hit OK. Awesome. Now remember, if you make a mistake, Control Alt Z will go back, or on a Mac it's Command Alt Z. So I can always go back to how it was. All right. Next thing we're going to do, if I have a look at the Photoshop image, the next thing we should put in is the floor of the house and then build up. So the floor is quite easy. What we're going to do, I've got a floor, so we can go File, Place, and then we can go and get basically something like this. So we're just going to bring that in. Now it's quite a small image, so what we're going to do, we might just increase the size a little bit, just drag it a little bit. But instead of just making it really big, what I'm going to do is duplicate it. So over here on my layers, we're going to need to duplicate this image 4 times. But before we do that, you'll notice there's a little symbol on the thumbnails of this layer. That means the layer needs to be rasterized for us to edit it. So we're going to just right click the name and then go to rasterize layer. Once that's done, we're going to right click and then say duplicate layer and just hit OK. So right click the name, duplicate layer, one more time. So we've got 4 of them. What we're going to do now is grab the moving tool and we're going to just move them to the side. And then click on the next layer and then again move that just above. Click on the next layer, move that just above. So basically we want them to be lined up. Now there is a bit of inconsistency with the floorboards, but when we transform this and we're going to flatten it and change its color, no one's going to really notice. And there are other ways in which we can change these discrepancies in the wood, but we're just going to avoid that for now. Next thing we're going to do is actually highlight all of the floor layers. So holding Control if you're on a PC or Command on a Mac and clicking each layer. And then we're going to right click and we're going to merge the layers. So now the floorboards is just one layer. Before we continue, it's really important that we name our layers, especially later on we're going to have about 30 different layers. It's going to be really important to know which layer is which. So what I want to do is double click on the names and change the names. So I'm going to double click in here and just call this the background. I'm going to double click on this and call it the floor. Okay, let's continue. This is really cool, this next part, but it can also get a little bit complicated if we're unsure of what to do. With the floor selected, what I want you to do, if you're on a PC, hold Control down and press T. If you're on a Mac, hold Command down and press T. And what you should now get are these little control points where you can enlarge the image. Now we're not going to enlarge the image. What we're going to do is right click the image and we're going to distort the image. So right click the image, hit distort, and what we're going to do is we're going to flatten this image. We're going to make it look like a floor. So real carefully we're going to bring these points down. Going to bring this one down as well, and there you start to see it's starting to transform and flatten. Now the really important thing to do here is to get this angle right here. This nice sharp angle is what makes the difference. So I'm going to try and replicate that angle. So I'm going to bring that down, bring this out wide. Let's have a look back. Just keep checking with the original just to make sure we are doing it right. That looks pretty good. I might just stretch it out a bit more here. So basically we're working on the 4 corner points. We're trying to get a nice sharp angle. Okay, I think that's pretty good. This will take you the most time, but will be the most rewarding if you get it right. When you are ready and you're happy with how you have placed it, hit enter on the keyboard. If you're unhappy, hit escape on the keyboard and it will go back to how it was. So we're going to move on. The next thing we need to do is make this floor look less like it's hovering. So we're going to actually put some thickness. Now to do that, we're going to go up to File, we're going to go to Place. And what I downloaded from Google Images was just a nice piece of wood. And we're going to use this quite a bit to cover up some mistakes and things like that. So just going to bring this single wood frame in. And what I'm going to do with this wood frame is transform it. So I'm going to make it thinner. I'm also going to rotate it. Now to rotate, we just go outside a little bit and then we click and drag. And I'm just going to place this as best I can. Make it a bit thinner. Let's have a look. I'll just zoom in. It's looking okay for now. We'll just get it roughly in that spot and then hit enter. And we're going to want to do it one more time. So we're going to go File, Place, Embedded. And we're going to go wood frame, make it thin, rotate it around. Now what you want to do to get this perfect is you're going to do a distort. So basically you're going to right click and hit distort, and then you're going to get these little points and you're going to connect it right to the edge. So I'll do the other one on the other side. Going to get that point and put it right to the edge. Now the bottom point should be directly underneath. Nice sharp angle, and I'll do the same for this side here. Just a nice sharp straight angle. There we go. Now I'm pretty happy with that for now. I'm going to hit enter on the keyboard to save it, and I'll go over to the next wood frame and I'll do a distort on that one. Control T or Command T on a Mac, right click and hit distort, and we're just going to make sure that connects up perfectly there, and that bottom one connects there. I'll also move over to this side, just make sure that's on the corner, and this one is right underneath. See how that looks, and hit enter to save it. So we've got a bit of thickness to the floor at the moment. Next thing we're going to do is rasterize those two layers. So I'm going to right click and hit rasterize layer. I'm going to right click this one, hit rasterize layer. We're also going to hold Control or Command down, and we're going to merge those layers. Awesome. Now the next thing we're going to do is change the colors of the floors. Now if I have a look at the original image, this one is very desaturated. It's got a very brownish grey dull colour to the floorboards. It's also got the wood frame that goes around it is a lot darker than the actual top of the floorboards. So we're going to try and do that as well. So let's make sure we've got the floor highlighted, and we're going to go to Image, Adjustments, Hue and Saturation. Now the first thing I want to do is desaturate it. So bring that down quite a bit. Now I'll just have a look back. It's close enough for now, but you can mess around with the hue if you like. I wouldn't go with anything extreme. Try and keep the color very single tone, brownish grey. That'll do. Could even darken it up a little bit. I'm happy with that. I'm going to hit OK. The next thing we're going to do is the wood frame. So we're going to select the wood frame, and now the cool thing about the wood frame is we're not just going to do an image adjustment, so we're also going to burn it a little bit. So we're going to do a hue and saturation first. We're going to desaturate it and darken it just slightly, and then hit OK. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to this tool here, and if you right click here, so it's just two above the T tool, if you right click you'll see a tool called the burn tool. And it's a really cool tool. We're going to use all of these tools, the sponge tool, the dodge tool and the burn tool. I'll quickly explain what they do. Now the dodge tool lightens up an area. The burn tool darkens it. It actually starts burning the image. The sponge tool desaturates an image, so it pulls the color out from it. So what we're going to first do is use the burn tool. Now, we're on the wood frame, and what we're going to do is right click the screen and just adjust the size of the brush. So I'm going to set it to about 120, hardness about 50%, and let's get to work. So basically what we're going to do is start to darken the corners. Now, don't do the whole thing. I would have some areas a lot darker than others, like the corner pieces. Corner pieces should be a lot more darker than some of the other pieces you've got. And that will add to the effect. Next thing we're going to do is click on the floor, and we're going to do the same thing on the floor. Now be very careful with the floor. You don't want to do a whole large area. Remember this, in the original image, the darkest areas are probably the ones along the wall. So around here, a little bit up there in the corner, a little bit down here, and just slightly around the wood frame. So we're going to be real careful. What we're going to do, we're going to zoom in, going to get this corner done first. So I'm just going to darken that area. Just where the front door is, just darken that area. And darken the areas just around the wood frame. This will add to the 3D look and feel of it. And I think that's about it for now.